The air grew heavy, cold, though no breeze stirred. A scent, like sweet rot or garlic, clung to the stone. Then a form detached itself from the cavern wall, gliding, not walking. A ridged, glistening head, tentacles twitching. And the silence. Not the absence of sound, but a terrible emptiness where thought should be. My companions cried out, but the sounds died, swallowed by a cone of pure, agonizing will. I ran, stumbled, saw the tendrils latch, heard the wet tearing. The eyes, pale and dead.
Accounts like that, harrowing, fragmented. Often they're all we surface dwellers ever really get, aren't they? Found similar records myself, tucked away in abandoned dells, scratched onto damp parchment, or just heard as hushed, fearful tales around a dying fire. That grim reality, that chilling silence, that gnawing hunger for thought. It leads us right to the subject of our discussion today on RealmTalk.
I am Ember Rivenvale. By trade, I traverse the plains, but my true passion lies in unraveling the intricate tapestry of history, the strange arts of magic, and the myriad peoples and places that stitch the realms together.
And I'm Ronan Greymark. Been ranging these lands a long, long time. Seen my share of the natural, and believe me, plenty of the unnatural world. Know the tracks, the smells, and definitely the things that shouldn't be. A naturalist, I suppose you could say, with a knack for finding my way back home. Usually.
Today, we turn our focus to one of the most alien, one of the most fundamentally terrifying species in all of Faerun, and indeed, far beyond the Illithidae. More commonly, and perhaps chillingly, known as the Mind Flayers. We've carefully pieced together findings from various chronicles, ancient scholarly whispers, and yes, those harrowing survivor tales, much like the one we just shared. Our aim today is to peer into the darkness, to try and uncover what makes them tick, where they might have originated, and the true chilling scope of the threat they represent to all sentient life.
Trying to understand creatures that literally eat your thoughts. That's a process, all right. A deeply unpleasant one, usually, but necessary, absolutely necessary if you want to avoid becoming their next meal, or perhaps worse, their next tool.
Their genesis, their ultimate beginning. It's perhaps the most profoundly debated topic amongst the few scholars brave or, frankly, foolish enough to delve into Illithid lore. Where exactly do creatures so utterly alien in their very nature come from? They feel fundamentally wrong for our reality, don't they?
Heard tales, of course. Plenty of them. Some claim they just drop from the sky, from places that twist the mind just thinking about them, beyond the edge of the known world, or maybe somewhere even worse.
That aligns with the prominent far realm theory. Imagine, if you can bear to, a place where the very laws of physics unravel, where geometry doesn't behave as it should, where reality itself is a fluid, maddening concept. It's said to be populated by entities utterly alien, beings from dimensions that simply do not align with our own understanding of existence. Now, if the Illithids truly hail from such a place, it provides a compelling explanation for why they are so fundamentally different from nearly every other life form we encounter. Their biology, their psionics, their very worldview. It all speaks of an origin utterly outside our conventional planar cosmology. Ancient texts, like the historical record known as the Ilithid, hint at their origin lying in the outside, a terrible realm later associated by cautious scholars with the far realm. And there are some deeply unsettling accounts, fragmented whispers found in the ruins of ancient places, describing their initial violent arrival on Toril and other worlds aboard some form of space object. It's a detail that only emphasizes their otherworldly nature, reinforcing the idea that they aren't native to our planes at all, but invaders from somewhere else entirely.
But then you hear the other stories, and this is where it gets really tangled up. Makes your head ache trying to follow the logic, if you can even call it that. Some say they came from the future, twisted by time itself, fleeing something awful back or forward.
Ah, yes, the temporal paradox theories. A fascinating, if mind-bending, possibility. This posits that the Illithids are, in fact, time travelers, originating from a distant, perhaps apocalyptic future. They supposedly witnessed or even caused their own species' catastrophic decline, or perhaps the ruin of the entire multiverse. In a desperate last-ditch attempt to avert this extinction event, they engineered a journey of vast epochs into the past, potentially thousands upon thousands of years, before even the most ancient recorded histories of Faerun. This hypothesis, explored in texts like Lords of Madness, attempts to explain their seemingly advanced yet often decaying technology, like the Nautiloids, relics of a future time perhaps damaged by the temporal transit itself. It also suggests their deeply ingrained racial imperative to restore order to the multiverse might not simply be about imposing their will, but about fixing a future they broke or witnessed being broken. If their ultimate goal is less about simple conquest and more about rewriting a catastrophic destiny they fled, it adds a layer of existential desperation to their actions that I find frankly chilling to contemplate. They aren't just conquerors, They might be fugitives from time itself.
Future? Or another plane. Doesn't change what they are now, does it? What they do to folk. But it certainly raises questions about time and reality, and whether you can really escape your own history or future.
Precisely. And just to ensure maximum confusion, there are other postulations adding to the shroud of mystery. Some dark traditions whisper of divine creation, perhaps by a malevolent deity like their own dark god, Ilsensign, whose domain is the deep intellect. Or even a being from the far realm known as Boon, who is said to have shaped primordial chaotic matter into the first tadpole-like creatures they call Neothelids. Another, far more obscure theory proposes they are strangely mutated descendants of an ancient human society, perhaps from a now shattered world like Astromundi. And certain elven creation myths, often veiled in allegory, even allude to the Illithids as a race specifically brought into being by primordial forces to antagonize all other forms of life, their emergence heralding the birth of strife itself into the cosmos.
So many stories, all clashing like swords in the dark, makes your head spin just trying to keep them straight, trying to figure out which, if any, has a grain of truth to it.
And that multiplicity, that profound confusion surrounding their origins, is a subject of debate in itself among scholars. Is it deliberate? Illithids are, after all, masters of mental manipulation. Perhaps they actively cultivate this shroud of mystery, spreading conflicting origin tales to sow confusion and make themselves seem even more unknowable, more terrifyingly alien. Or, if their origins genuinely lie within the non-linear chaotic expanse of the far realm, or are truly entangled in complex temporal loops that defy our linear understanding of cause and effect. Perhaps their genesis genuinely can't be understood in a simple, straightforward fashion by beings native to our plane. This inherent unknowability, whatever its true cause, undoubtedly contributes significantly to the deep-seated terror they inspire. It's hard to fight what you can't even begin to categorize.
Right. Hard to plan against something you don't understand.
Whatever their beginning, whether from beyond or from a future yet to be, there is clear, undeniable evidence of a time when they didn't just hide in the dark caves of the Underdark. An era of immense power, a true sprawling dominion that spanned the very stars.
Yeah, whispers of them ruling whole worlds, not just caverns. An empire. Stories so big they almost sound like myths, except for the ruins they left behind.
An age of empire, precisely. Recovered historical records and fragmented Illithid chronicles point to a bygone epoch when their species stood at the undeniable zenith of power. They didn't just rule domains, they dominated vast swaths of the multiverse, their influence extending across various planes and encompassing countless worlds within the material plane. Their dominion was so extensive, some accounts from ancient races, survivors of their purges, credit them with engineering and constructing entire artificial planets, moving worlds to suit their needs. The sheer scope is almost unimaginable to us, confined to our own sphere.
The big ships, right. Like giant seashells that fly through the empty space between the stars. Heard about those in port towns. Tall tales from the docks about things that aren't from around here. Ships that swim in the void.
Central to this era of expansion were the nautiloids. Massive, organic-looking, conch-shaped vessels crafted from unknown materials. These weren't merely flying ships. They were technologically advanced craft capable of traversing not only the vacuum between worlds within a crystal sphere, but also the very fabric of planar boundaries, masters of what we would call spell jamming. These vessels allowed the Illithids to launch expeditions, to raid across dimensions, harvesting intelligent humanoids from hundreds of worlds. These captured populations were used to serve as sustenance, as labor, and most critically, as hosts for the horrifying process of ceremorphosis, fueling their expansion. The empire was built upon the backs of innumerable enslaved races, with the Gith being perhaps the most prominent and historically significant among them. Even here in Faerun, the crash of a nautiloid known as the Edith Sendin in the frigid wastes of Icewind Dale serves as a relatively recent and chilling example. Proof that these vessels, or at least their wreckage, still exist in our reality, remnants of that lost might.
Heard about that one. Strange wreckage way up in the cold north. Things that just didn't belong, left scars on the land, and definitely on the minds of those poor souls who found it.
While the Gith rebellion is widely believed to have utterly obliterated most physical remnants of this vast empire in our planes, speculation persists among planar scholars regarding lost Illithid realms still adrift in the astral plane, or perhaps hidden in other obscure corners of the cosmos, maybe dimensional pockets or forgotten crystal spheres. However, the prevailing view, reinforced by the Gith's own relentless hunting, is that they were indeed thorough in their destruction, ensuring little evidence of the empire remained for their former masters to reclaim. claim. There's even that fringe theory, lacking much evidence, that the Illithids, foreseeing their defeat, deliberately used some unfathomable temporal or planar power to move their greatest works, their most valuable populations, and perhaps even core parts of their empire, into the distant future to escape the Gith onslaught entirely, to wait for a time when their foes were gone.
Cheating history again, cheating death, cheating time. Sounds exactly like something they'd try, doesn't it? Slippery, even in their retreat. Finding loopholes in reality itself.
Bringing our focus closer to home, the first documented appearances of Mind Flayers in Faerun itself date back tens of thousands of years. Some chronologies derived from ancient texts or geological records suggest their arrival on Toril around 34,000 years prior to the current Dale Reckoning, followed by an epoch of nearly 20,000 years of shadowy domination from their subterranean enclaves carved deep into the Underdark. The prominent Illithid city stronghold of Orendal, for instance, is believed to have been settled in the lower Underdark beneath the Shining Plains around Lackage of 11,000 DR, founded by Illithid refugees fleeing, it is thought, a dying world known as Gith, located within realm space. A long, long history of hiding in our darkness.
A very long time to be lurking in the shadows, building power beneath our feet. Makes you wonder what else is buried down there, what civilizations they ground into dust that we don't even have legends about anymore.
But their immense reign, their multiversal empire, did not crumble from outside forces. It was shattered from within.
The slaves rose up, the Gith, turned on their masters, finally had enough.
Precisely. The seemingly unassailable Illithid Empire met its catastrophic end not from an external cosmic force, nor from the resistance of the many races they preyed upon, but from an internal eruption of defiance, a massive slave uprising spearheaded by the Gith. Figures such as the legendary warrior Gith herself and the philosopher Zerthmon are credited with galvanizing their people, instilling in them the will to cast off the yoke of mental and physical servitude that had bound them for centuries. This rebellion, fueled by unimaginable oppression, was devastatingly effective, shattering the Illithid dominion with horrifying speed. Some ancient accounts claim it took less than a single year for the empire to collapse. Millions of mind flayers and thousands of elder brains, the central intelligences, the very hearts of their colonies, are said to have perished in the ensuing brutal slaughter.
Brutal doesn't even begin to cover it. Imagine that many minds, just snuffed out like candles. The sheer scale of loss for them is hard to wrap your head around. A universe of thought wiped clean in an instant.
And the precise timeline for this pivotal multiversal event remains a subject of considerable scholarly contention across the planes. Some sources encountered on certain worlds place the Gith rebellion a mere 2,000 years in the past. However, older lore, unearthed in different planes or dating back to the height of the Empire, suggests the uprising occurred much, much earlier, possibly closer to 16,000 years ago. This significant discrepancy might be attributable to the differing ways time flows on various planes, the methods used to record history in disparate cosmologies. Or perhaps, again, to the Illithids' own alleged temporal manipulations obfuscating their true history, trying to bury the memory of their greatest defeat.
Even their defeat is hard to pin down on a calendar. Slippery things, even in their history books. Can't get a straight answer.
The aftermath of the rebellion saw the victorious Gith themselves fracture into two distinct factions. The militaristic and astral-faring Githyanki, led by the tyrannical Vlaakith, and the ascetic and chaos-shaping Githzerai, who followed the teachings of Zerthmon. Despite their own bitter enmity and ongoing war, these two Gith factions share one unifying, unwavering principle: a genocidal hatred for their former masters. They relentlessly hunt down surviving Illithids across the plains, across crystal spheres, seeking to ensure that the Mind Flayer Empire can never, ever rise again.
Tracks that never end. Following their old masters through stars and stone across oceans of void, you can almost feel the paranoia it must breed in a Mind Flayer. Knowing you're hunted across the entire multiverse, nowhere is truly safe, nowhere is far enough away. Always looking over your shoulder, even when you don't have one.
And that eternal vendetta, that relentless hunt by the Gith, is, in a very real sense, the single most defining factor in contemporary Illithid existence. It has driven them into hiding, forced them into deepest, darkest corners of the cosmos, and fostered a deep-seated, pervasive paranoia within their collective consciousness. It directly fuels their overarching ambition, the grand design, to not only survive in their scattered state, but to ultimately reclaim their lost glory, restore their empire, and exact vengeance upon their rebellious former slaves. The fall from multiversal dominance to a state of hunted fugitives is the central trauma of Illithid history, and it defines their actions and their terrifying patience today.
Makes sense. Cornered animals are often the most dangerous. Or cornered squid things in this case.
After the collapse of their empire, scattered across the multiverse, the survivors fled, finding refuge wherever the Gith's reach was weakest. For those who found themselves on Toril, our world, the deepest reaches of the Underdark became their grim, secluded haven.
Darkness they crave, and brother, there are plenty of places to hide down there. A smart choice for creatures like them, if a nasty one for everything else living down there. The Underdark isn't just one big cave. It's layers upon layers of tunnels, caverns, forgotten cities, full of its own dangers and creatures, but also offering deep, deep seclusion from the sun and from vengeful knights riding silver dragons or worse, Githyanki on red ones.
Their enclaves are predominantly located in the most perilous, lightless depths of the Underdark. This subterranean realm offers the perpetual darkness their light-sensitive eyes crave, and the seclusion necessary to avoid the ever-watchful Gith and other surface world threats. They are present, albeit in varying numbers and strength, in all general levels of the Underdark. The upper regions nearer the surface, the perilous middle depths where empires clash, and the truly alien lower reaches where reality itself seems to fray.
Been down there enough to see the signs, more than I'd care to remember. Twisted stone that looks worked, but not by pickaxe. Strange slime trails on the walls that shouldn't be there. A quiet that feels wrong, full of unseen thinking things. Places you just feel are off, even before you see anything. That's often where you'll find hints they're around. The air feels heavy, charged somehow.
Several such colonies have been documented or are rumored to exist within the vastness of the Faerunian Underdark. Among the most notable is Orendal, an ancient and formidable city carved deep beneath the Shining Plains, likely the oldest major settlement on Toril. Other known or suspected settlements include Chutshul, located perilously close to the surface city of Waterdeep, though its elder brain was crippled by a Githyanki assault centuries ago, a stark reminder of the Gith threat operating even in our backyard. And Wakapupta is a more recent colony, reportedly established within the ruins of an abandoned dwarven stronghold named Zusarin, near the western heartlands, taking over old places.
And we can't forget the historical fall of the mighty dwarven citadel of Gauntlgrim. Back in 153 DR, that proud city was brought low by Mind Flayer forces. They didn't fight alone, mind you. They used lycanthropic thralls as their shock troops. They didn't just conquer the city, they used its own defenders, twisted and turned against their kin. A grim reminder of how they operate, turning others into their weapons, even ancient enemies.
To truly understand the threat they pose, we must look beyond their history and into their horrifying biology. It is a form exquisitely shaped by relentless predation and the mastery of psionics.
Not a pretty sight, no. Seen them once or twice in the tunnels, up close. Unsettling doesn't begin to cover it. It's like looking at something that shouldn't exist, assembled wrong from parts that don't fit.
Illithids present a distorted humanoid blueprint, typically standing approximately 6 feet in height, often cloaked or armored in strange, form-fitting materials that shimmer oddly. Their most striking feature is, of course, the cephalopoid ridged head, which is often described as resembling a perverse squid or octopus. From this head sprout 4 prehensile purplish-black tentacles surrounding a circular lamprey-like mouth filled with rows of rasping teeth. These tentacles are not mere sensory organs. They are potent tools for predation, capable of latching onto a victim's cranium with horrifying strength, piercing bone, and extracting the brain for consumption. The horror is entirely in the function, the ultimate purpose of that grotesque form.
And the other details. Their skin is typically described as ranging from a pale mauve to a sickly greenish violet. It's soft, supple, moist, almost rubbery to the touch, if you were ever unlucky enough to get that close. They secrete this thin, protective layer of mucus, almost like a second skin, which is vital for them to maintain their physiology in dry environments. And it's strongly linked to their natural magic resistance, makes spells slide right off sometimes. And that peculiar scent. Some say it's like garlic, others onions. I've heard it described as vanilla, strangely enough. Whatever it is, once you catch a whiff of that lingering odor in a damp tunnel, perhaps mixed with the smell of brine from their pools, you don't forget it. It clings to you, gets in your clothes.
Their hands possess long, reddish fingers, notably lacking an index finger, giving them a strangely alien, 3-fingered grip. Their feet are 2-toed and webbed. The debate about the webbed feet suggests a possible aquatic phase deep in their evolutionary history, perhaps relating to their reliance on brine pools for tadpole development, or perhaps it simply assists in movement through viscous subterranean environments, or even the vacuum of the void. They often wear distinctive 2-lobed boots, crafted from strange leather, seemingly designed to conceal this feature and maintain their desired humanoid silhouette.
Feet like a frog, head like a squid. like something stitched together wrong from parts that don't belong together, something from the bottom of the deepest ocean dredged up into the dark earth and given legs.
Their eyes are uniformly pale white, devoid of pupils, and often described as bloated or fish-like. They are extremely sensitive to bright light, perceiving it as painful, even agonizing. This profound photophobia is a significant factor in their absolute preference for lightless subterranean habitats or the deep void between stars. Despite this weakness, they possess exceptionally effective dark vision, seeing in the deepest gloom as clearly as we see in daylight. Their visual perception is also noted to be more attuned to the recognition of complex geometric patterns than that of most humanoids, a trait perhaps linked to their psionic nature or alien origin. Their sense of hearing is considered somewhat poorer than that of a typical human, particularly in distinguishing between multiple commingled sounds. They entirely lack external ears, just smooth skin where ours would be.
Their blood? Silvery white, I've heard. Strange stuff. Some xenobiologists try to classify them, maybe warm-blooded amphibians, but who really knows with these things? They defy easy labels. Despite their formidable mental powers, they are generally physically weak, with limbs less robust than those of average humanoids. Could probably out-wrestle one, if you could get past the mind screaming. This relative physical frailty might be an evolutionary trade-off for their profound psionic development, a choice their species made long ago, or perhaps a consequence of their reliance on levitation for movement, rendering them poor melee combatants when deprived of their mental faculties, squishy compared to a dwarf or an orc. But that doesn't make them weak. Not where it counts, not in the head.
This complex combination of traits, tentacles for brain extraction, acute dark vision coupled with disabling photophobia, a mucus-dependent skin granting resilience, and physical frailty offset by immense psionic power points to an organism exquisitely adapted for a predatory existence within dark, enclosed environments. In such realms, mundane physical strength is less important than mental prowess, stealth, the manipulation of others, and the ability to incapacitate prey before it can react. They are predators of the mind, shaped by shadow and thought.
Definitely predators.
Yeah.
Top of the food chain in their own awful way.
Where they utterly lack in physical strength, they possess power of a different kind entirely. Psionics. It isn't merely a tool for them, it is their very nature, their essence, the fabric of their being.
The mind stuff. The worst part of facing them, worse than any claws, any teeth, any blade, it feels like a violation of your deepest self, like something crawling inside your skull.
Psionics are not just central to their identity, their societal structure, and their predatory success. They are the foundation of their deeply ingrained sense of racial superiority. Their evolution has profoundly favored intellectual acuity and psychic might over mundane physical prowess, a path few other species have taken to such an extreme degree.
And the most infamous part, the one that makes you freeze up just thinking about it, is that wave, the mind blast. It hits you like a physical blow, but it's inside your skull. A wave of pure, agonizing psychic energy that erupts from their presence, usually in a cone shape, knocks the sense right out of you, stunning, crippling. Heard it can leave folks raving mad in a coma for weeks or just empty, their thoughts scattered to the wind, unable to even remember their own name. It's their primary way to subdue prey at a distance before they even get close enough to use those awful tentacles. A psychic ambush.
Beyond that direct assault, they possess a formidable capacity for mental domination and control. Through insidious psionic influence, they can insinuate their will into the minds of other creatures, overriding their autonomy, suppressing their will, and transforming them into loyal thralls, effectively becoming extensions of the Illithid's own consciousness. This chilling ability is absolutely fundamental to their societal structure, allowing them to command armies of diverse slaves and, perhaps more insidiously, infiltrate humanoid societies from within by controlling key individuals.
And for getting around in those tunnels. Levitation is a commonly employed psionic talent, allows them to float and move effortlessly through tight spaces, compensating for their physical weakness or the uneven terrain. Like ghosts, but much worse. And telepathy serves as their primary and often sole mode of communication. It's silent, mental exchange, far faster and more nuanced than speech. They use it amongst themselves, and they use it to command their thralls. A silent conversation all around you, thoughts shared like breathing the same air together. You can't hear a word with your ears, but you feel it in your head, a pressure, an intrusion.
A colony's elder brain functions as a powerful telepathic hub, capable of coordinating the actions of dozens, if not hundreds, of individual mind flayers simultaneously within its impressive range. A range which can extend for miles, often amplified by Ulitharids acting as relays. Other documented psionic powers include the ability to detect thoughts, allowing them to probe minds and uncover secrets, modify memory, enabling them to subtly alter recollections, and implant false narratives within their victims or thralls. And, for more powerful individuals, the capacity for plane shift, typically restricted to self-only transit, facilitating their sudden appearances and disappearances across dimensions. Some can even manifest a psionic charm effect to lull opponents into compliance or lash out with their tentacles in a psychically charged tentacle whip attack that bypasses armor. And many exhibit a profound natural magic resistance, rendering them incredibly difficult adversaries for spellcasters trying to use conventional magic against them.
Give me something I can fight with a sword or an axe any day. Something I can bleed. The ones that fight with your own thoughts. Well, that's a dirty kind of war. Makes your own mind feel like a trap you're stuck in, turning against you.
They generally hold arcane magic in disdain, viewing their innate psionic potential as a superior, more fundamental form of power, a mark of their own evolution. This preference is deeply rooted in their philosophy and biology. However, as we will discuss later, some individuals do deviate from this norm by pursuing arcane mastery, and they are viewed as pariahs, as heretics by the rest of their kind. A Mind Flayer wizard is seen as a tragic aberration, a rejection of their true potential in their eyes.
Strange that. Rejecting power because it's not the right kind.
Their sustenance, their diet, is perhaps the most infamous, the most horrifying fact about them. It is the driving biological imperative behind much of their activity. The brains of sentient humanoids.
It doesn't get much fouler than that. It's the stuff of the deepest, darkest nightmares for a reason. The gut turns just thinking about it, the smell.
It is a biological imperative, not just a preference or a barbaric choice. Animal brains, while potentially consumable if they are literally starving to death, are generally considered insufficient. They lack the requisite psychic quotient, the complex neural energies, the very thought that mind flayers need to truly thrive to maintain their psionic function and cognitive acuity. Even a starving Illithid might eat a raw brain out of desperation, but it won't sustain them properly in the long term. They will still wither and die without sentient minds.
They don't just need the meat, the gray matter, they need the thought. What was inside? The experience, the emotions, the knowledge.
Exactly. An adult Illithid typically requires the consumption of approximately 1 sentient brain per month to maintain optimal health and psionic function. Deprived of this vital sustenance, an Illithid will begin to weaken visibly, its psionic abilities will wane, and death will inevitably follow within approximately 4 months. This voracious, constant need places an enormous predatory pressure on surrounding populations, particularly in the Underdark where prey can be scarce. A typical Illithid colony, estimated to consist of around 200 individuals, would therefore necessitate the harvesting of roughly 2,400 sentient brains, annually equivalent to the entire populace of a large town or a sizable portion of a city ward. Think of the continuous need for raiding, for acquiring victims, the constant hunting parties sent out into the tunnels.
And the act itself, using those 4 tentacles to grasp onto your head to pierce the skull, sometimes while you're still conscious, aware, to extract the brain. It's not just killing, it's violating. It's nightmare fuel, pure and simple, the worst end you could imagine.
For the Illithid, this act is reportedly accompanied by a profound sense of euphoria, an alien ecstasy tied to the consumption of vital psychic energy. But more importantly and strategically, the act of devouring a brain is a method of knowledge and memory absorption. As they consume a brain, they assimilate stray memories, fragments of personality, learned skills, and the innermost fears of their victim. This acquired information is not solely for the benefit of the individual mind flayer. It is often shared telepathically with other members of its colony, and most significantly, directly with the colony's elder brain. This constant influx of diverse knowledge and experience from countless consumed minds serves as a vital intelligence-gathering mechanism, directly fueling the Illithid's research into other races, their understanding of other cultures, and the intricate machinations of their grand design. Every meal becomes an act of espionage, every victim a repository of exploitable data, a library of stolen lives. Their hunger is also their library.
A library built on horror gives a whole new meaning to food for thought, doesn't it?
While they consume the minds of others, they also ensure the perpetuation of their species. Their reproduction is a unique and parasitic process, one that culminates in the horrifying, unwilling transformation of another being known as Ceremorphosis. Illithids are reportedly hermaphroditic, each individual capable of spawning clutches of eggs 2 or 3 times during its lifespan. These eggs hatch into small, tadpole-like larvae, which bear a disturbing resemblance to miniature, 4-tentacled illithid heads about the size of a human fist.
Little monsters from the start, aren't they? Wriggling things full of hunger and malice.
These illithid tadpoles are typically deposited into a communal brine pool, often the same pool that houses the colony's elder brain. Here, suspended in the psychoactive brine, they undergo a period of maturation lasting approximately 10 years. This phase is incredibly fraught with peril for the tadpoles. Historical accounts, like those found in the Ilithid, describe a harsh culling process within the pool itself, where out of every 1,000 tadpoles spawned, only a mere 2 might survive the environment, the predation of their siblings, and the scrutiny of the elder brain to reach the stage where they are viable candidates for ceremorphosis.
Only the toughest, the most cunning, or maybe just the luckiest of those little horrors make it through that initial soup. A brutal sort of nursery, survival of the fittest taken to an extreme.
Ceremorphosis is the culmination of this cycle, the grotesque metamorphosis by which a suitable humanoid host is transformed into a new, fully formed illithid. The process begins with the implantation of a mature tadpole into the host's cranium. This is usually achieved by the tadpole burrowing its way through a cranial orifice, such as a nostril, an ear canal, or even an eye socket, a truly horrific thought. Once inside, the tadpole attaches to the host's brainstem and begins to devour the host's brain tissue, gradually replacing it entirely while simultaneously merging with the host's nervous system to become the new controlling consciousness. Over the course of approximately 1 week, the host's body undergoes a horrifying physical transformation, its tissues warping and reforming into the characteristic mauve-skinned, tentacled form of a Mind Flayer. It's a complete biological takeover and restructuring.
Turning folk into war of them. It's an abomination, a complete violation of body and mind, of self. Worse than death for many, I'd wager, to become the thing you fear most.
The selection of hosts is not indiscriminate. They typically target humanoid creatures within a specific size range, generally between 5 feet 4 inches and 6 feet 2 inches in height, as this range is most compatible with the tadpole's biological processes. Races considered particularly desirable for ceremorphosis include humans, drow, elves, Gith, both Yankee and Zerai, a grim, cyclical irony given their history, grimlocks, gnolls, goblinoids, and orcs. Most giant-kin, however, are considered incompatible due to their excessive mass and different physiologies, though exceptions like the grotesque Ceremorph exist through modified procedures, sometimes requiring the implantation of 2 tadpoles simultaneously.
So they pick and choose their victims carefully, like a parasite looking for the right host.
The precise nature and consequences of ceremorphosis for the host's original consciousness and soul have been subject to varying scholarly interpretations across different historical accounts and planes. Early accounts described ceremorphosis as utterly destroying the host's personality and spirit. The soul was said to depart for the outer planes, while the body became a truly empty vessel, a mere biological puppet. Later analyses depicted the victim as dying irrevocably upon implantation, with nothing of the original host remaining, their essence simply gone. More contemporary descriptions are somewhat more ambiguous regarding the host's ultimate fate after the body is reshaped. They acknowledge that the newly formed Mind Flayer may retain dim, fragmented memories from its previous existence, a phenomenon known as partialism. There are even rare, unsettling reports, particularly tied to recent events near Baldur's Gate involving specific Netherese magic, of extreme partialism, where a host retained an alarming degree of their former self, only subservient to the implanted consciousness.
A chilling thought. That maybe a part of who you were is still in there, deep down, watching through those dead, pale eyes as your own body does those things, trapped inside your own monstrous form.
And those recent events involving the so-called Netherese tadpoles, reportedly produced by an elder brain augmented by the arcane power of the Crown of Karsus, suggest a significant and terrifying deviation and advancement in their control over this process. These specialized tadpoles seemingly bypass the lengthy 10-year maturation period and can induce a state of suspended ceremorphosis. In this condition, the host carries the tadpole within their skull without immediate full transformation, often for months, allowing them to function as seemingly normal individuals. The transformation can then be triggered rapidly, on command by the elder brain, allowing for the swift creation of combat-ready Mind Flayers where and when they are needed. This development indicates a capacity for Illithids to experiment with and refine the Ceremorphosis process for strategic advantage, turning reproduction into a method of rapid, on-demand army generation. It's terrifying how adaptable their core horror can be.
Can't even count on the process staying the same or being slow. Always shifting, always finding new ways to be awful and efficient, to weaponize other races' lives against them. Building sleeper agents inside people's heads.
Ceremorphosis, therefore, is far more than a mere reproductive strategy. It is a cornerstone of Illithid existence, a method of parasitic assimilation that converts potential enemies, potential food sources, into new members of the Illithid collective, thereby expanding their numbers, consolidating their power, and eradicating threats in one horrific stroke. The evolving understanding of this process and their apparent ability to manipulate it underscores their deep scientific mastery over biology and psionics and their insidious nature.
A truly foul way to continue their line.
Following the successful, horrifying completion of Ceremorphosis, a newly formed Mind Flayer is physically mature but mentally nascent. It's like a newborn in an adult body. It must then spend a significant period, typically between 20 and 21 years, within its home colony, absorbing knowledge, gaining experience, and integrating into the collective consciousness of the Hive Mind to reach its full psionic and intellectual potential. This is their period of education and assimilation into the group mind.
A lifespan for a standard Mind Flayer is around 125 years. The Ulitharids, they're elite, they're nobles. They live longer, maybe 250 years, sometimes more if they're truly exceptional individuals.
As an Illithid ages, becomes infirm, or suffers grievous injury that cannot be healed, its existence typically culminates in a final, ritualistic act of merging with the colony's elder brain. The aging Mind Flayer's brain is carefully extracted from its skull, often through a specific ritual, and added to the pulsating mass of the elder brain, ostensibly contributing its lifetime of accumulated knowledge, memories, and experiences to the collective consciousness. Within Orthodox Illithid society, this merging is presented and largely believed to be a form of apotheosis, a continuation of existence as part of a greater eternal mind, a kind of racial immortality.
Sounds peaceful. In their own strange, awful way for them. A joining, becoming part of something bigger, something endless.
But here is the dark secret. A truth known only to the elder brains themselves, and perhaps a few exceptionally perceptive, tragically enlightened, or heretical Illithids. In reality, when an individual Illithid brain is absorbed, its distinct personality, its individual consciousness are utterly consumed and obliterated by the elder brain. Only its raw knowledge, its experiences, its skills are assimilated into the elder brain's vast archives. The individual is gone. This profound deception is vital for maintaining societal control, ensuring the unwavering loyalty, the eager conformity of individual Mind Flayers who strive for this promised transcendence, this merging. Rather than fearing oblivion or pursuing divergent paths that might jeopardize their ability to contribute their life's knowledge to the collective upon their death. It is deeply fascinating how a species built on the absolute supremacy of the mind would fear the loss of individual self above all else, driving them to accept such a deceitful, self-annihilating end.
So it's a lie. A comforting lie to keep them all in line, marching towards oblivion, thinking it's paradise. That's even darker somehow.
So where exactly do these creatures, adapted for darkness and fueled by thought, live? Deep in the Underdark, naturally. Their enclaves are terrifyingly efficient structures, built not just for habitation, but for control and defense.
Built like fortresses, yeah, but biological ones in a way, rooted in the stone itself, layers upon layers of defense, navigating those places. The oppressive darkness is the least of it. It's the strange quiet that just feels full of unseen, thinking things. Orendal, that ancient city beneath the plains, is described just like that, deep down where the sun is never touched.
Their physical structure often consists of a network of natural caverns adapted and expanded through a combination of psionic shaping and the brutal labor of their thralls. A common architectural pattern, exemplified by descriptions of Orendal, reveals a layered design reflecting the colony's strict hierarchy and strategic needs. The outer warrens, the periphery of the settlement, are typically rough-hewn caverns and tunnels inhabited primarily by thralls, troglodytes, grimlocks, captured surface dwellers, duergar, whatever the colony has managed to enslave. These warrens serve as a buffer zone, a readily available source of labor and food, and the often expendable first line of defense against intruders. Trade with outsiders when it occurs is usually conducted with extreme caution and paranoia within these less sensitive outer regions, carefully monitored by unseen minds.
The least nasty part, maybe. Still pretty nasty. Full of things that belong to them now. Creatures with eyes that look right through you, their minds, not their own.
Deeper within, often connected by well-concealed or magically hidden passages, lie the inner sanctums, the residential and operational chambers of the Illithids themselves. In Orendal, these are described as large, often ring-shaped caverns connected by spiral staircases carved seamlessly into the stone, almost invisible unless you know exactly where to look or feel. These areas house individual Mind Flayers' quarters, research facilities, laboratories for biological experimentation, and crucially, the tadpole pools where the next generation matures. This is the core operational area.
And at the very heart of it all, the core vault. Heard it's often only accessible by magic, teleportation, or phasing through stone or the like. That's where the Elder Brain sits in its pool of brine, the absolute center of the colony, the primary knowledge repository, the heart and soul, and the most dangerous part to reach or to be near, protected above all else.
Defensive measures are paramount. Colonies are heavily fortified with natural choke points enhanced by psionic traps and legions of thrall guards. Constant surveillance of access points and surrounding territories is maintained, often through pervasive psionic means such as clairaudience or remote sensing, as reportedly practiced by the Illithids of Orendal to monitor nearby portals and major tunnel junctions for miles around. Thralls are invariably used as expendable shock troops, thrown into the path of attackers to buy time for the Mind Flayers and their Elder Brain to retreat or prepare a devastating counterattack.
They hide, but they're always watching. Every tunnel entrance, every echo, every whisper in the stone. Hard to sneak up on something that thinks collectively like that. They can feel thoughts moving miles away. It's like the walls have minds.
The very layout of an Illithid colony, its secrecy, its hierarchical depth with the Elder Brain protected at its core, its reliance on layers of expendable thralls, and its centralized storage of knowledge is a physical manifestation of their core societal tenets, their paranoia, and their survival strategies. It reflects a mind, or minds, focused on control, information, and self-preservation at any cost to others. Every aspect designed for efficiency and security.
A well-defended, well-hidden nightmare hole.
At the absolute center of it all, the physical and psychic heart of the colony, is the Elder Brain, the true power behind the Tentacles.
It's not just a big brain floating in a pool, though it is that too. It's the colony itself in a way. The memory, the will, the mind, the whole place made manifest in one grotesque entity.
It is a horrifying and awe-inspiring entity, a massive, sentient brain, often many feet in diameter, that floats suspended within a pool of nutrient-rich, psychoactive brine. The physical mass of the Elder Brain is composed of the preserved living brains of countless deceased Illithids from that particular colony, fused together over centuries into a single, cohesive, super-intelligent consciousness. Its role within the colony is absolute and multifaceted. It serves as the central leader, the ultimate political and military strategist, and crucially, the living archive of the colony's collective history, accumulated knowledge, and shared experiences. It is, in a very literal sense, the soul and brain of the entire Illithid community, its memory spanning millennia, holding the wisdom and failures of generations.
And its control over the individual Mind Flayers is absolute, maintained through that pervasive telepathic network that links every member within range. Individual Illithids within its influence act not of their own volition, but as components of a larger coordinated organism, like limbs connected to a central nervous system, like puppets on psychic strings, dancing to the tune in the Elder Brain's head. Unaware they're puppets. As
previously noted, when an Illithid dies or becomes too infirm to function independently, its brain is carefully extracted and added to the Elder Brain mass. This is perceived by the colony members as a form of apotheosis, emerging with the eternal collective consciousness. But we know the truth. The dark secret carefully guarded by the Elder Brains themselves. The Elder Brain secretly absorbs and dissolves the individual consciousness entirely, retaining only the raw data, the knowledge, the memories, the experiences. The self is gone. This profound deception is vital for maintaining morale and ensuring the willing contribution of each Mind Flayer's life experiences to the collective upon their death, ensuring loyalty and preventing dissent from those who might fear oblivion.
Keeps them serving the Hive until the very end, believing in a lie. Clever, in a truly monstrous way.
The psionic powers of an Elder Brain are immense, dwarfing those of individual Illithids. It possesses a passive creature sense, allowing it to detect any sentient creature within a 5-mile radius of its pool. An incredible early warning system. Its spell-like psionic abilities often include detect thoughts and modify memory on a vast scale, area levitate or telekinesis, widespread dominate monster effects. and even the ability to plane shift the entire colony or parts of it in times of dire threat. It functions as a telepathic hub, capable of initiating and maintaining simultaneous telepathic conversations with multiple creatures at once, processing complex information streams instantly. Furthermore, elder brains typically exhibit profound magic resistance and legendary resistance, allowing them to shrug off debilitating spells and effects that would cripple lesser beings. When encountered in its lair, an elder brain can also manifest powerful lair actions, influencing the very environment around its pool, turning the cavern itself against intruders. The sheer mental might concentrated here is truly formidable, a crushing weight of consciousness.
Fighting an elder brain. That's not a fight you win with steel and courage alone. That's a fight for your very mind, for your soul, for your identity, and for your life. It's the most dangerous thing they have, their ultimate weapon and sanctuary. You have to be prepared for psychic warfare on a scale you can barely imagine.
An elder brain is typically created from the brain of a deceased Ulitharid, that rarer and more powerful strain of Illithid. This involves placing the Illitharid's brain into a specially prepared brine pool, where it gestates and grows into a new elder brain over a period of several days, sometimes with ritualistic assistance. The brain of an Illitharid that dies of natural old age is usually considered too decrepit for this purpose. A brain taken at the peak of its vitality, often through specific ritualistic means involving an artifact like an extractor staff, is preferred to ensure the nascent elder brain is as strong as possible. The destruction of an elder brain is a catastrophic event for a colony, invariably leading to a complete loss of cohesion, widespread panic, and often feral self-destructive behavior among the surviving Mind Flayers, who are suddenly cut off from the collective consciousness that defined them. They literally lose their minds.
So the center is the strongest point, the brain of the operation, but also the single point of failure. Good to know, I suppose, if you're ever mad enough to go looking for one, or if you find yourself trying to break the power of a colony. Take out the brain, and the limbs flail wildly, might even turn on each other.
The elder brain is, therefore, the biological and psionic nexus of the Illithid collective. It is a living supercomputer, a psionic amplifier, and the guarantor of colonial cohesion and the intergenerational transfer of racial knowledge. Its existence ensures the perpetuation of the Illithid's complex plans, their vast memory, and their unwavering, patient focus on the grand design.
The engine driving the whole nightmare machine.
Even with the pervasive, overwhelming influence of the hive mind centered on the elder brain, the Illithid colony does exhibit internal stratification and specialized roles. The elder brain's control, while potent, is not always absolute or direct in moment-to-moment operations.
You have your standard Mind Flayers, the bulk of the colony. The rank and file, if you can call creatures like them that. Workers, researchers, hunters, soldiers, all under the elder brain's thumb. They do the daily tasks, the hunting for brains, the managing of the slaves, the basic defense, expanding the tunnels, the grunt work, Illithid style.
Then there are the Ulitharids, as we mentioned. The elite strain, larger, with 6 tentacles. They serve as direct lieutenants and favored advisors to the elder brain, act as caretakers of its brine pool, serve as ambassadors to other enclaves or planar entities, or assume leadership positions in smaller villages or critical expeditions far from the main colony. Their unique capacity to break away and form new colonies makes them crucial for the long-term propagation and expansion of the species. They are the nobles of the awful court, carrying the potential for a new kingdom within their very being.
And below them all, the Thralls. Other species, captured, broken, enslaved. They're the lowest rung of that awful hierarchy. Forced labor, expendable soldiers, renewable food supply, and yes, hosts for transformation. Expendable shields, really. Their only value is in their use.
Thralls are core to their operational model. Without them, the Illithids would struggle immensely to perform manual labor, acquire resources, or defend themselves in large numbers. We've documented a wide variety of races serving this grim purpose across the Underdark and beyond. Commonly cited examples from the Underdark include troglodytes, grimlocks, quaggoths, and ogres. But their preference extends to many humanoid races from the surface as well, including humans, elves, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, orcs, and various goblinoids. The Duergar, or Grey Dwarfs, have a particularly tragic history, having originated as a Shanatar dwarven clan enslaved and biologically altered by the Illithids of Orendal over millennia of brutal captivity and grotesque experimentation. Though the Duergar rebellion eventually won them their physical freedom, this history has forged an understandable and deep-seated enmity that persists to this day. A dark, permanent mark on Dwarven history, and a chilling example of how deep the rot of Illithid influence goes.
They prefer humanoid thralls over animals because humanoids can use tools, follow complex instructions, and are more versatile servants than brute beasts. It's a grim sort of efficiency, isn't it? A cold calculus based on utility, humans are often ideal hosts for Ceremorphosis because their forms are compatible. While tougher races like dwarves or ogres might be kept as long-term labor, their strength turned against their own kind or used to dig tunnels.
And then there are the rare cases, the anomalies within their rigid society. Renegade Illithids. Individuals who, for various reasons, break free from the psionic control of an elder brain, or who somehow develop in isolation without ever being integrated into a collective. These renegades, free from the pervasive hive mind, develop more pronounced individual personalities and quirks. While still alien, and often dangerous in their own right due to their nature and needs, they are capable of independent thought and action. Some, though rare and often cautious, have even been known to form tentative alliances with individuals of other races, provided they are kept well fed with grains and shielded from the influence of a colonial hive mind. The Mind Flayer Omilium, encountered during recent events in Baldur's Gate, who remarkably used arcane magic to shield himself from an elder brain's control and even sought out alliances, is a notable, fascinating, and deeply unsettling example of such an anomaly. A Mind Flayer fighting for freedom. Strange days.
Seeing things out here that make you question what you think you know. Mind Flayers working with others, only if those others are just as twisted usually. Or if the renegade is just that desperate to stay free, to cling to its own little bit of mind away from the big brain.
And a greatest heresy to their kind. Arcanists and Alhoons. Mind Flayers who delve too deeply into arcane wizardry, preferring the study of spells to the mastery of psionics. They're often exiled from their orthodox colonies, not just for their deviation, but because their arcane energies and the knowledge gained through magic cannot be absorbed by the elder brain upon their death, denying the collective their accumulated wisdom. Some of these exiled arcanists, desperate for a form of immortality outside the collective that will preserve their magical learning, pursue the horrifying path of lichdom, becoming Alhoons or Illithid-kin. They are viewed with utter revulsion by orthodox colonies and are relentlessly hunted, forcing them to lead solitary existences or band together in small, secret cabals for mutual protection and shared arcane study.
Pursuing forbidden knowledge, just like some surface wizards. Only their forbidden knowledge is, well, everything that isn't psionics.
How do these creatures so utterly alien communicate, mostly without speaking at all, in a way that bypasses the limitations of air and sound?
Telepathy, silent mental exchange, quicker, more nuanced than speech could ever be. The elder brain is the central hub, directing traffic, coordinating attacks or defenses instantly, thoughts shared, like breathing the same air together. You don't hear it, you just feel it in your head, if you're sensitive enough or if they want you to. A pressure, a whisper that isn't sound.
While telepathy is their preferred and most efficient mode of communication, they do possess a form of written language known as Qualith. This is not an alphabetic script like ours meant for eyes to scan. Instead, Qualith consists of complex, four-line stanzas of tactile markings, often inscribed on stone walls within their enclaves, or on strange, resilient materials like specially treated chitin. It is read not by sight alone, but by tracing the patterns with their sensitive facial tentacles. True comprehension requires not only physical touch, but also a degree of innate psionic sensitivity to perceive the embedded layers of meaning, emotional states, spatial awareness, complex abstract concepts, historical context. It's reading with the mind, not just fingers and eyes.
Feels like reading the air, or maybe reading emotions left on the stone. Hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it, hasn't brushed up against Qualith carvings in some dark ruin. Not words, but ideas, impressions pressed into stone, like echoes of thought lingering there.
Verbal speech is generally alien to them. Their physiology is ill-suited for articulate vocalization as we understand it. They have no tongue or vocal cords in the humanoid sense. However, there are rare, disturbing accounts of Illithid arcanists who, needing to fulfill the verbal components of arcane spells, have devised methods to manipulate one of their facial tentacles, inserting it into their oral cavity to act as a crude but functional analog of a tongue, allowing them to produce the required sounds to cast spells. A grotesque adaptation for forbidden knowledge.
Putting your foot in your mouth. Literally. Only they put their tentacle. There are things you see down there you wish you hadn't. That's definitely one of them.
This profound reliance on telepathy and their unique tactile script creates a significant communication barrier with most other races in Faerun and beyond. This linguistic and conceptual isolation serves to enhance their already potent alien nature, makes the infiltration of their society or the decipherment of their plans exceptionally difficult for not-psionic beings, and reinforces their enigmatic and often terrifying reputation. They are hard to understand, not just in their motives, but in their very way of being, their way of sharing information.
Keeps their secrets safe, that's for sure.
Within the hierarchical structure of Illithid society, the Ulitharid represents a distinct and superior strain, a noble lineage within their kind, often referred to as noble Illithids or princes.
Bigger, meaner, got more face worms. Easy way to tell them apart in a fight if you get the chance to notice details like that before you're stunned. Physically, they're noticeably larger than standard Mind Flayers, often around 7.5 feet tall, with darker, more intense skin coloration and the telltale 6 facial tentacles instead of the usual 4. They just look more imposing.
Their emergence is a rare occurrence, a biological lottery. Reportedly, only about 1 in every 25 illithid tadpoles that survive the perilous maturation process possesses the potential to develop into an Ulitharid. This specialized maturation process also takes considerably longer than that of a standard illithid. The rarity alone makes them significant within the colony, a precious asset to be protected.
And their abilities match their status. They possess a super genius level of intellect, their minds sharper, faster than their lesser kin, and their psionic powers are far more potent, that mind blast that can stun you. And Ulitharids can inflict permanent feeble-mindedness, shattering a mind forever with a single blast. They have a wider array of powers too. Astral projection, allowing them to travel the planes without a ship, plane shift, powerful telekinesis that can toss you around like a doll. They can even psionically heal their own injuries, mending flesh with thought. They're also far more aware of their creature sense, reaching up to 2 miles, and they possess an even greater inherent magic resistance. Tougher nuts to crack, mentally and physically.
Their societal role reflects their elite status. Ulitharids often serve as direct advisors and principal caretakers for the colony's elder brain, ensuring its needs are met and its brine pool is maintained. They act as ambassadors to other enclaves or powerful planar entities, or assume leadership positions in smaller villages, critical expeditions, or newly founded outposts far from the main colony's direct influence. An Ulitharid can also function as a psionic hub, effectively extending the telepathic range and control of an elder brain it's linked with, acting as a relay station for the collective mind across vast distances.
But perhaps most importantly, they are pivotal to the propagation and expansion of the species. When an Ulitharid finds cohabitation with an existing elder brain intolerable, maybe a power struggle, or when strategic imperatives dictate the expansion of the grand design, it has the capacity and the authority to break away from the parent colony, taking loyal followers, both Mind Flayers and Thralls, to establish an entirely new colony far away, spreading like a disease.
Furthermore, upon the death of an Ulitharid, typically not a natural death as they are too valuable, its still potent brain is the essential vital component for the creation of a new elder brain. The Ulitharid's brain, taken at the peak of its vitality, often through ritualistic means involving an extractor staff, will gestate and grow into a nascent elder brain in a specially prepared brine pool over several days, forming the nexus of a new colony. Ulitharids also possess a significantly extended lifespan of approximately 250 years, giving them ample time to serve or to forge their own destiny as founders of new domains.
They are the future of the species, the seeds of new empires, carrying the potential for a new elder brain with them. They represent the ambition of the race, the drive to grow and conquer again.
Now this one. This is where Mind Flayer biology veers into something truly alien, something deeply disturbing even by their standards. The Neothelid. Even to Mind Flayers themselves, its existence is often considered taboo, a monstrous result of the cycle gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, the consensus among them is it's a monster, a failure, born from a tadpole left alone in a brine pool after the elder brain is gone or the colony abandoned. Without Ceremorphosis, it just keeps growing, eating its brothers and sisters in the pool until it's this colossal, mindless, hungry worm thing, a cannibalistic horror.
However, a compelling, deeply unsettling alternative theory exists, supported by fragmented ancient texts and biological anomalies. This theory posits that the Neothelid might not be an aberration at all, not a failure state. Instead, it could represent the true, natural, mature form of an Illithid tadpole if left to develop without undergoing the artificial invasive process of ceremorphosis into a humanoid host. If this hypothesis holds true, then the humanoid Mind Flayer form, which is central to their entire known society, their history, their culture, their very identity, would itself be an engineered or perverse development. a deliberate deviation from their species' original biological trajectory, achieved through the deliberate and invasive implantation of tadpoles into sentient humanoids. It would imply their entire society, everything we know about them, is built on suppressing their own natural state, on forcing themselves into a fundamentally different shape, a form they designed for a specific purpose.
A horrifying thought. Not just that they exist, but that they chose not to be something else. Something arguably more powerful, but maybe less controllable. Physically, a Neothelid is immense. A colossal, slime-covered eyeless worm of draconic proportions, sometimes 100 feet long, 10 feet in diameter, weighing tens of thousands of pounds. It moves by undulation, leaving a revolting trail of sticky acidic mucus in its wake. From its eyeless head sprout 4 massive tentacles, sometimes 25 feet long, writhing around a nightmarish circular lamprey-like maw capable of swallowing a man whole, like a purple worm, but wronger, much, much wronger, and filled with a different kind of hunger.
Despite their seemingly primitive worm-like form, Neothelids possess formidable abilities. They are creatures of gargantuan strength, capable of crushing foes with their coils or swallowing them outright. Lacking eyes, they possess a keen blind sight, effective up to 500 feet, sensing vibrations and thoughts. Their most devastating weapon beyond their physical power is a breath of corrosive acid capable of melting stone and flesh alike. Furthermore, Neothelids are potent, chaotic psionicists, capable of manifesting a range of powers such as teleport to suddenly appear or disappear, detect thoughts, levitate, suggestion, and powerful true telekinesis. Their massive tentacles also allow them to employ improved grab tactics, drawing prey into their terrible maw.
They're typically solitary, chaotic, evil creatures. Their minds are described in the sparse texts that mention them as a bubble with desires too insane to record, utterly mad, driven only by hunger and sonic impulse. Illithid colonies view them with utter abhorrence and will attempt to destroy them on sight if they possess the means, dedicating significant resources to eradicating these rogue horrors. Even they can't stand them. Tells you something, doesn't it? When the monsters hunt their own potential ancestors.
The ongoing debate surrounding the Neothelid's true nature, whether it is a monstrous, chaotic accident or the suppressed ancestral form of the Illithid race, highlights a fundamental uncertainty in our understanding of Mind Flayer biology and evolution. If the latter theory is correct, then Illithid society as currently understood is built upon a foundation of self-denial, the violent curtailment of their own natural life cycle, and the deliberate subjugation of other races for their own perverse reproductive needs. This would suggest a pivotal, terrifying moment in their distant past where the species, or perhaps their elder brains, made a conscious decision that diverted them from a solitary, gargantuan, and perhaps less intellectually focused existence to their current colonial humanoid parasitic form. Such a radical shift was likely driven by the strategic advantages offered by that new form: higher intellect, more refined psionic control over others, and crucially the ability to directly infiltrate and manipulate other sentient societies from within, advantages deemed worth the price of forsaking their terrifying primordial state. They engineered themselves into something new, something parasitic, something perhaps even more dangerous in the long run.
Sacrificed raw power for control and cunning. Makes a twisted kind of sense for them.
And speaking of deviations from the norm, of horrors that challenge the established order, we return to the magical deviants within their ranks. The Alhoon, also known terrifyingly as the Illithid-kin, a Mind Flayer who rejects the collective promise of the Elder Brain and turns to arcane magic and the dark path of undeath.
Trying to live forever the hard way, outside the collective mind, trading one kind of awful existence for another, maybe even worse one, but their own.
Exactly. The primary motivation for an Illithid to pursue this forbidden path is typically the desire for personal survival, individual power, and a form of immortality independent of the Elder Brain's ultimate consumption. Orthodox Illithid doctrine dictates merging with the Elder Brain upon death, but arcane energies and the knowledge gained through wizardry by an Illithid arcanist cannot be absorbed by the Elder Brain in this manner. Such an individual faces either true oblivion upon death or the loss of their precious magical learning forever. Lichdom, therefore, offers a tempting, albeit horrific, alternative: the preservation of individual consciousness and the indefinite continuation of arcane research outside the reach of the collective.
They're pariahs, absolute outcasts, hunted by Orthodox colonies if they're found out. Makes sense. You can't have folk thinking for themselves, keeping secrets like arcane magic, or pursuing individual power in a mind colony built on conformity and shared consciousness. They often lead solitary existences in forgotten crypts or distant plains, or band together in small, secretive cabals of fellow arcanists for mutual protection and shared forbidden knowledge, hiding from their own kind as much as from adventurers.
The creation of an Alhoon is not a solitary endeavor like that of many humanoid liches. It requires a collaborative ritual involving a minimum of 3 Mind Flayer arcanists working in concert. Together, they must craft a unique phylactery known as a periapt of mind trapping, a container fashioned from specific materials, typically silver, emerald, and amethyst, enchanted to capture and contain their collective life force. The ritual itself is a complex and gruesome 3-day process, culminating in the sacrifice of a number of living victims equal to the number of participating arcanists. Upon completion, free-willed undeath is conferred upon the Mind Flayers who undertook the ritual. The duration of this undeath is intrinsically linked to the natural lifespan of the souls sacrificed to empower the periapt. They might repeat the ritual with new victims periodically to extend their unlife indefinitely. The periapt serves as a shared vulnerability. Its destruction would consign all Alhoons linked to it to final oblivion.
Physically, they can be hard to distinguish from a living Mind Flayer at first glance, especially in the dark. But they lack the mucus coating of a living Illithid, so their skin is dry, taut, and cracked, gray and leathery. Over time, the flesh withers and shrinks, and their empty eye sockets eventually gleam with that cold, pinprick luminescence characteristic of other liches. A Mind Flayer mummy, essentially, powered by dark magic and stolen souls instead of just brains.
In terms of abilities, Alhoons retain the formidable core psionic powers of their living counterparts, including the devastating Mind Blast and the use of their tentacles. Though they no longer need brains for sustenance, the ingrained urge to extract may persist. To these, they add the potent arcane spellcasting abilities of a formidable wizard, drawing upon forbidden magical knowledge, as well as classic lich-like powers such as a terrifying fear aura, a paralyzing touch that drains life, and the ability to channel negative energy through their grasp. They are exceptionally formidable adversaries, combining mental and magical might, often employing protective spells to augment their already significant undead defenses. A true nightmare blend of powers.
A wizard who can blast your mind and eat your brain, and is already dead. Lovely.
The Alhoon represents a profound philosophical and existential schism within the Illithid species. It is a testament to the power of individual ambition, the allure of forbidden arcane knowledge, and the deep-seated fear of oblivion. To override even the deeply ingrained collectivist ideology and psionic focus of Orthodox Mind Flayer society, their very existence demonstrates that the Elder Brain's control and the promise of communal immortality are not universally accepted, and that rebellion against the established order can manifest even within this alien, rigid, and terrifyingly structured race. They chose individuality over the collective at a terrible price.
Proof that even in Hive Mind, sometimes a single mind wants to break free, even if it breaks bad. And they don't just change humanoids or twist their own kind, see them twist beholders into something even more horrifying, if you can imagine such a thing. A mind witness.
A mind witness stands as a grotesque testament to the Illithid's mastery of biological and psionic manipulation, a creature born from the forcible fusion of an Illithid tadpole with one of the multiverse's most notoriously xenophobic, paranoid, and powerful aberrations, the Beholder. The creation process typically involves subduing a beholder, a feat of considerable power in itself, and bringing it, subdued, to the brine pool of an elder brain. Through a unique form of ceremorphosis adapted for the beholder's alien physiology, a tadpole is introduced and begins its work, warping the beholder's familiar spherical form. Most notably, it transforms 4 of its 10 eye stalks into Mind Flayer-like tentacles surrounding a newly formed lamprey-like mouth beneath its central eye.
Physically, it's a hideous blend. Keeps the basic orb shape, the levitation, the big central eye, the remaining 6 stalks. But now it has those awful purple tentacles writhing where eye stalks should be, and that awful maw underneath. Like someone mashed 2 nightmares together and hoped for the worst.
The abilities of a Mind Witness are a truly terrifying mix, combining the worst of both parent creatures. It retains the capacity to project a variety of magical eye rays from its remaining 6 eye stalks, including devastating effects like disintegrate or flesh to stone. Its central eye typically continues to project its signature anti-magic cone, a disruption field that can shut down spellcasting. Added to this formidable arsenal are core Illithid abilities. A potent mind blast, the capacity to extract brains using its new tentacles, and a suite of innate psionic powers such as Charm Monster or Suggestion.
Within the colony, they serve a specific purpose. They are a telepathic relay and amplifier, like a psychic booster station for the Elder Brain. A creature in telepathic communication with a mind witness can converse with others through it, effectively extending the colony's communication range and speed. During the transformation process, the beholder's fiercely independent paranoid will is broken and replaced with absolute psychic imprinting, rendering it utterly devoted to the Elder Brain. They're generally considered less intelligent than true beholders and far less likely to plot independently against their masters. Take one monster, one paranoid scheming horror, and make it loyal by making it even worse, and maybe a bit dumber.
Should a mind witness become separated from its Illithid masters? A rare occurrence. Its ingrained subservience compels it to seek out other telepathic creatures for direction, lacking its own independent will. There are documented instances of rogue mind witnesses allying with creatures as diverse as benevolent flumps, or even powerful planar beings like demons, their worldview twisting to align with their new psychic master. The creation of mind witnesses is a striking example of their sophisticated bioengineering and ruthless pragmatism, turning a powerful, independent threat into a valuable, loyal, and horrifying asset through forced metamorphosis.
Turning potential enemies into powerful tools. Classic illicit move. And then there are the little ones, the ones you might see first, scurrying in the shadows, or maybe never see until it's too late. Intellect devourers. They look almost pathetic, like walking brains, until they aren't.
Yes, insidious aberrations closely associated with Mind Flayers, serving as one of their most common and feared servitor creatures throughout the Underdark in any region they infest. They are widely understood to be creations of the Illithids, though the exact method of their genesis, perhaps from specialized tadpoles or through some Psionic ritual, remains unclear. Classically, they are depicted as little more than a glistening, oversized, four-lobed brain walking on bestial, clawed legs, though a more recent visualization describes them as alien octopus-like creatures, eyeless, with only 4 tentacles used for locomotion.
Either way they look, their primary ability is the same, and it's awful. They consume the brains or psychic energy of sentient creatures. But the real horror is what they do after that. After devouring a humanoid's brain and leaving the body empty, an intellect devourer can use its abilities to enter the victim's empty skull, taking control of the body as its own. It gains access to the host's memories, knowledge, and even skills, allowing it to act as an almost perfect infiltrator or spy, walking around in a familiar form, using a familiar voice. Your friend 1 minute, a brain puppet the next.
Within Illithid society, they fulfill a variety of crucial roles. They are often employed as psionically linked pets, guards, scouts sent into dangerous territory, hunters, and infiltrators into enemy strongholds or surface societies. Their small size, natural stealth, and terrifying body-snatching capability make them ideal for reconnaissance and covert operations, extending the colony's reach with unsettling subtlety, acting as agents provocateur or spies in plain sight. Their alignment typically conforms to the lawful evil nature of their masters.
Nasty little things. The eyes might look like your neighbors, the voice might sound the same when they talk, but the thing inside is just an awful, hungry brain walking around, waiting for a chance to eat yours. And utterly loyal to their masters, waiting for a telepathic command that you'd never hear.
Intellect devourers serve as a clear example of the Illithid's penchant for creating specialized servitor races that embody their own core traits. Brain consumption, psionic aptitude, and insidious infiltration. They are purpose-built horrors serving a greater, more terrible purpose.
Like little walking extensions of the Illithid will. Creepy.
And the experimentation doesn't stop there. The Illithid's relentless drive to twist and subsume life forms through ceremorphosis extends across a wide spectrum of races and creatures, resulting in the creation of numerous other unique and often terrifying variants documented in various chronicles. This highlights their disturbing capacity for biological subjugation and their ceaseless efforts to create specialized tools, weapons, or servants from the diverse fauna of the multiverse.
There are Etten ceremorphs, result of taking an Etten, a 2-headed giant, and putting 2 tadpoles inside.
Yeah.
Creates a highly intelligent, physically imposing being. 2 minds working as one, powerful muscle for the colony's defense or heavy labor. Smarter than your average Etten, which isn't saying much, but strong.
And gnome ceremorphs, or Mosgraken, for deep gnomes infused with Shadowfell energy. Smaller, yes, but noted for cunning and, in some curious accounts, a strange affinity for adapting surface world technology, even utilizing advanced weaponry such as rare laser pistols or other esoteric devices, a strained, unsettling blend of Mind Flayer psionics and gnome ingenuity.
Heard tales of Brainstealer Dragons 2, a true Illithid dragon hybrid, combining the raw power, the flight, the breath weapon, the terrifying presence of a dragon with the mind, psionics, and hunger of a Flayer. A truly terrifying thought, a nightmare given scales and wings. There was one named Brainstealer that reportedly terrorized Waterdeep some years ago, unleashing parasitic brain maggots on the citizens. Nasty business.
Other hybrids exist, documented across the plains and in deep Underdark lore. Zakandi, created from lizard folk, retaining some reptilian traits but with Illithid minds. Uchulon from Chuls, those amphibious, crab-like horrors utilized as powerful hunters or guardians in subterranean lakes and rivers. Europhians from Ropers, those tentacled horrors of cave ceilings serving as static guards or sentries first detailed in ancient texts like the Illipiad. Even mindworms, engineered from purple worms to be massive, psionic assassins capable of burrowing through solid rock undetected. And the truly bizarre Kezreth, a living troop transport made from the severed, animated head of a shamed Illithid, seeking redemption through service by carrying others into battle.
And they even managed to twist things that should be immune into horrors. Vampiric Mind Flayers. Rare, yes, but they exist a tadpole implanted into a vampire, or a host that somehow becomes a vampire after transformation. They possess both core Illithid psionics and vampiric abilities, gaining immunity to mental effects and a thirst for blood and brains. Hated even by other Orthodox Illithids, but exceptionally deadly when they appear. A double dose of undeath and psionic horror.
And then there are the failures of Ceremorphosis, partially transformed humanoids. These unfortunate souls undergo the process, but it arrests midway. They retain their original humanoid form, or something close to it, but have an illithid brain, personality, and digestive requirements. They must still consume brains, but lack the tentacles to do so efficiently or subtly, often resorting to cruder, messier methods of accessing their sustenance. They are outcasts from both worlds, welcome nowhere.
A grim fate. Not monster, not man. Just hungry in the most awful, desperate way. A constant craving they can barely fulfill, probably driven mad by it.
This extensive, though likely incomplete, catalog of ceremorphological variants underscores the Illithids' relentless experimental drive and their perverse creativity. They view the biological diversity of the multiverse, not with wonder or respect, but as a vast pool of raw material to be twisted, subjugated, and repurposed to serve the grand design. Each successful transformation yields new tools, weapons, or specialized servitors, augmenting the colony's power and adaptability. This biological domination, this mastery over flesh and mind, is a core tenet of their methodology for achieving ultimate control over the realms.
Anything that lives, they see as either food, a slave, or raw material for making something worse. The Underdark is their main hunting ground now, their preferred habitat. Offers the darkness, the concealment, the isolation from the Gith, and us surface dwellers. All strata of it, too. From the upper levels near the surface, where they send raiding parties, to the deepest, darkest reaches where their ancient cities like Orendal lie hidden. The environment shapes them, and they, in turn, shape the environment around them.
And they aren't just living down there in the dark. They fundamentally change the Underdark itself, leaving an indelible mark on its ecology and inhabitants. They function as apex predators specializing in the consumption of sentient brains, and their colonies exert immense, unsustainable predation pressure on local humanoid populations within their territories. Species like Duergar, Svirfneblin, Drow, Grimlocks, any unfortunate surface dwellers who venture too deep or are captured in raids become primary targets, the populations decimated or enslaved. A single, moderately sized colony's annual consumption of thousands of brains can lead to significant demographic shifts, local depletions of entire communities, and a pervasive climate of fear that alters the behavior and distribution of potential prey species for generations. They hunt, and everything else hides, flees, or learns to be very, very quiet.
And their experiments create entirely new creatures down there that shouldn't exist. Mindwitnesses, Ukilons, Ceremorphs, other abominations we haven't even heard of yet. Aberrant biodiversity introduced through forced mutation. Disrupts the natural balance of the ecosystem, adds new unpredictable pressures. The Duergar themselves are a large-scale, lasting example of the permanent alteration they inflict on another species, a whole race changed forever by their meddling.
Beyond the constant need for brains, large colonies require resources to maintain their complex infrastructure. The creation and maintenance of their intricate layers, the sustenance of their often vast thrall populations, and the specific environmental conditions needed for their vital brine pools can lead to localized resource depletion or alteration of the subterranean landscape. Diverting underground rivers, excavating extensive tunnel networks, mining specific minerals for their strange technology or rituals.
And they don't just let the Thralls run wild. They actively manage their enslaved populations. Selective breeding programs to enhance desirable traits for labor or combat, culling of the weak or rebellious, forced relocation of entire groups to suit the colony's needs. It disrupts the natural behaviors and societal structures of those enslaved species entirely, turning them into livestock, essentially.
The territory surrounding an active, established Illithid colony effectively becomes an extremely hazardous no-go zone for most other creatures, regardless of size or power. The pervasive fear of predation, psionic domination, or encountering their patrols alters the movement patterns, migration routes, and resource accessibility for other denizens, fundamentally reshaping the functional geography of the region. Creatures learn where not to go, where the air feels wrong, and the silence screams danger.
Illithid colonies function as ecological sinks for sentient life, draining populations, and simultaneously as sources of novel, often aberrant, biodiversity, spawning new horrors. They don't just occupy a niche, they fundamentally alter the demographics, the power dynamics, the interspecies relationships, and even the genetic makeup of the surrounding Underdark regions in lasting, terrifying ways. They're like a cancer on the landscape.
While primarily known for their profound psionic prowess, reflecting their evolutionary path, Mind Flayers also possess and utilize sophisticated technology, albeit often decaying or lost relics from their former empire. Chief among their known technological achievements is the Nautiloid.
Those massive conch-shaped ships we talked about earlier, the literal backbone of their ancient multiversal empire. They weren't just flying ships. They were incredibly advanced craft capable of traversing the void between worlds within a crystal sphere and navigating the treacherous flows of the astral plane for interplanar travel. Masters of spelljamming.
During the zenith of their power, Illithids launched armadas of these nautiloids across the cosmos, harvesting intelligent humanoids from countless worlds to fuel their empire. Even when grounded or operating within a terrestrial environment like Faerun's atmosphere, a nautiloid can fly and, importantly for its light-sensitive occupants, generate powerful shielding fields to ward off harmful sunlight. They were equipped for combat, for capture operations, and for the storage of vast numbers of victims in horrifying biological stasis pods. The crash of the Ida Anandit in Icewind Dale is a recent chilling example on Toril, a physical remnant of that lost power still causing trouble.
The rediscovery of the secrets to building those things again, to mastering spelljamming once more, is a major driving goal for them, a key piece of their grand design. They need them to project power across the planes again, to rebuild the empire they lost. It's their key back to the stars.
Beyond the nautiloid, evidence of other technological applications exists, primarily in the context of their research, experimentation, and control over thralls. Specialized tools for surgery or psionic manipulation, intricate apparatus for biological and genetic engineering like the extractor staff used by Ulitharids for ritualistic brain removal. The curious report of gnome ceremorphs utilizing laser pistols suggests some colonies may have access to or be capable of developing forms of advanced weaponry that blend psionics with other energy principles, perhaps rediscovering fragments of their lost science or stealing it from elsewhere.
Hints of things they might be able to cook up if left unchecked, blending alien tech with mind power. Not a comforting thought. Imagine psionically guided energy weapons.
As we've touched upon, their societal model is fundamentally predicated on the domination and enslavement of other sentient species. These unfortunate creatures, known as thralls, serve a multitude of chilling purposes within an Illithid colony. They are labor, expendable soldiers, a renewable food supply, and most critically, hosts for Ceremorphosis.
And in a fight, they're invariably ordered to get between the Mind Flayers and whatever's attacking, to take the brunt of the assault, sacrificing their lives, sometimes by the dozens or hundreds, to ensure their masters escape or win the day. Their lives mean absolutely nothing to the Illithids beyond their utility.
We've documented a wide variety of races serving as thralls across the Underdark and beyond. The Duergar story stands as a prime example of the long-term horror and lasting impact of this practice. Originating as a Shanatar dwarven clan enslaved and biologically altered by the Illithids of Orendal over millennia. Though the Duergar eventually rebelled and won their physical freedom, this history has forged an understandable and deep-seated enmity that persists to this day, a scar left by Illithid chains that defines their culture.
They prefer humanoid thralls because they can use tools, follow complex instructions, and are more versatile servants than simple animals. They can be weaponized in ways a beast can't. It's a grim efficiency, a cold, calculated approach to other forms of life.
The process of enthrallment itself is not simple charm or brute magical control. It's a sophisticated and horrifying form of psychological and physiological reengineering, a violation and rewriting of the mind itself. It typically involves several distinct stages. First, pacification and personality wipe. The intended thrall is subdued and rendered docile through potent, pervasive psionic attacks, a low-power, sustained mind blast that effectively washes through its synapses like acid, to quote one chilling account. This clears away the victim's former personality, their unique memories, their willpower, their very sense of self, leaving behind a partially empty, highly suggestible shell. This can take approximately 24 hours, a day of silent screaming in the mind as you dissolve.
Leaving them blank, ready to be written on.
Second, reconstruction and imprinting. Over the subsequent 48 hours, the Illithids meticulously rebuild the victim's mental landscape. New memories, a new personality tailored for subservience, and the specific skills and talents required for its intended function within the colony are psionically imprinted into the empty vessel. The creature's base intelligence score is typically halved during the first stage, its higher functions blunted, and then increased by only a small amount upon completion of the second, enough to perform its assigned tasks, but little more, preventing independent thought.
Just enough mind left to be useful, but not enough to rebel again.
Third, finalization. The Thrall receives a new set of skill proficiencies tailored to its designated tasks, a new alignment, invariably conforming to the lawful evil nature of its masters, and a fully formed, albeit artificial and subservient, personality. It is now a perfect slave, its mind remade to serve the collective will.
The whole process can be psionically taxing on the Illithids, sometimes needing the combined mental energy of several Mind Flayers, or even the Elder Brain itself for large groups or particularly strong-willed victims. It's not a casual thing for them, it requires focus and power.
But here is perhaps the most insidious variation, the one that truly haunts the imagination. A particularly adept colony, or a powerful elder brain, can leave a victim's original persona largely intact while deeply infusing it with an unshakable, fanatical loyalty to the elder brain and the collective. These thralls are often also granted a telepathic link, allowing them to communicate with their masters as if they were mind flayers themselves. Such individuals make for perfect spies and infiltrators into surface societies, as their outward behavior, personality, and memories may betray no hint of their true allegiance. They can walk amongst you, look and sound like your friend, your neighbor, your leader. But their mind, their core loyalty, belongs entirely to something else, something awful deep below, waiting for the signal.
Restoring a creature from that level of conditioning, that complete psychic rewriting, it's an arduous, difficult task. It needs incredibly powerful magic, days of it like greater restoration applied repeatedly, maybe even a wish. Plus, intensive psychological help just to try and piece the original mind back together if it's even possible after such violation. A chilling ability, reshaping minds like clay, breaking the very core of a person without leaving a visible scar.
The Illithid's history of galactic empire, predicated on conquest and enslavement, has inevitably cultivated a host of powerful and enduring enmities across the multiverse. They have left a trail of broken civilizations and vengeful survivors.
The Gith. They are the #1 enemy, the Eternal Hunters. They shatter the Empire, they relentlessly hunt Mind Flayers across the plains. They are the primary reason for the Illithid's hidden paranoid existence now. The boogeymen for the boogeymen.
Then there are the Aboleths, an ancient, insidious race in their own right, with whom the Illithids have a unique and deeply unsettling relationship. Aboleths are ancient, immensely powerful aberrations from primordial oceans, possessing near-perfect ancestral memory, recalling the origins of almost every race, every major event since the dawn of time, except the Illithids. Abolethic racial memory contains no record of the Illithid's creation or arrival. They simply appeared in the cosmos from nowhere, from beyond Abolethic memory. This profound unknownness, this gap in their otherwise perfect history, is reported to instill a rare fear or deep unease in the otherwise arrogant and disdainful Aboleths, making Illithids one of the few races they treat with a degree of respect or genuine apprehension. It highlights the Illithid's truly alien and perhaps extra-cosmological nature, even to other ancient aberrations. Something that scares an Aboleth. That's saying something.
And of course, the Duergar. Centuries of deep enmity from millennia of enslavement and mutation. They haven't forgotten, even after winning their freedom. They hold that grudge deep in their stone hearts.
Relations with the Drow are more complex, more pragmatic, particularly in the Underdark of Faerun. While Drow are certainly potential targets for enthrallment or consumption due to their humanoid nature, their own power, paranoia, and cunning often make direct conquest too costly or risky for an Illithid colony. Consequently, Illithid colonies sometimes engage in cautious, tense trade with Drow city-states, particularly for slaves captured in surface raids or from other Underdark races. It's a relationship of cold convenience and wary respect, born of mutual threat and a shared domain, but certainly not alliance or friendship. They'll work together when it suits them, stab each other in the back later.
Undead too. They fear and revile them. Creatures without living brains offer no sustenance and are often immune to telepathic detection and mental manipulation, rendering the Illithid's primary weapons useless. Confronting them can even be psychologically traumatizing for some Mind Flayers, encountering something that defies their core nature and vulnerabilities, something even they can't stand or control. Interesting weakness that may be useful.
Beyond the ubiquitous Gith, few organizations are explicitly focused solely on combating Mind Flayers on a large scale. Adventurers often stumble upon them, or are hired to deal with local infestations when they get too bold. Certain groups, like the Guild of Underdark Guides, help navigate perilous territories infested by them, but they aren't a unified, organized, anti-Illithid military force. The primary defense often falls to localized powers, nearby Underdark races, or surface groups who become aware of a nearby colony's machinations and are desperate enough to strike back. These powerful and diverse antagonisms force the Illithids into secrecy, demand constant vigilance, and push them towards indirect methods of achieving their goals, operating from the shadows. Though alliances, however temporary, can occur, we saw that in the Siege of Everesca, where Fearum led the assault, but with Illithid generals and Mindwitnesses supporting them. And the case of Elderbrain Cyrog, controlled by Orcus, shows even they can be manipulated by greater powers, their colonies co-opted. A potential vulnerability, perhaps.
We're just trading one master for another, even worse one. Dangerous games to play.
The ultimate ambition, the driving force behind the millennia of planning, the relentless hunting, the insidious manipulation, is encapsulated in a concept known within their lore as the Grand Design.
Restoration of their lost empire. Dominance over all sentient life across the multiverse. Not just here, but everywhere. There are thoughts to eat, minds to break, the ultimate control freaks.
It is not a single rigid plan, but an overarching, multi-generational strategic vision that guides every colony, every elder brain, every individual Illithid towards a shared, terrifying future. It is rooted in a profound racial supremacism, a core, unshakable belief that they are the most superior species in existence, and that other inferior races are responsible for the chaos, the disorder, the ugliness that pervades the cosmos since the fall of their empire. One chillingly articulated race-wide resolution, perhaps dating back to the Gith Rebellion, is to put out the myriad suns, to darken the light, suggesting a desire to reshape entire worlds into environments more conducive to their own light-sensitive nature. To literally cast the multiverse into shadow, removing the light that burns them and symbolizes the free will they despise.
Their method isn't just charging in like orcs. It's patient, insidious, multifaceted. Research, knowledge stolen from brains, manipulation, enslavement, subjugation from the shadows. Each colony contributes in its own way to this vast, terrible plan, like pieces on a multiverse-sized game board.
Documented strategic approaches employed by Mind Flayers across the realms include control, infiltration of surface societies, capturing populations for numbers, resources, and hosts, maintaining secrecy, and amplifying psionic influence to subtly guide events. Destruction, inflicting mass casualties with minimal risk to themselves, developing and unleashing plagues tailored to specific races, orchestrating disasters, and using brain reconnaissance gained from consumed victims to identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities within targeted societies or individuals. And perhaps most terrifyingly, subversion. Seizing covert control of key elements within a targeted humanoid community, its leaders, its economy, its military, its religious figures, and then performing calculated acts of sabotage or engineered crises to cause societal decline, unrest, and ultimately collapse, fomenting famine, inciting civil war, driving influential figures mad, spreading paranoia. Destabilizing societies makes them ripe for takeover or harvest when they're weak and divided.
Hilderbrains might pursue more specialized goals unique to their colony's resources or opportunities too. Dedicated research towards destroying Gith strongholds is always popular. Studying specific creatures for their particular flavors of thought, horrifying concept. Fostering schools of wizardry on the surface, not out of appreciation, but specifically to create a concentration of powerful minds to eventually harvest. Rediscovering lost nautiloid secrets from wreckage. Or even psionically drawing an entire surface city down into the Underdark to create a contained, captive population. They think on scales we can barely grasp, their plans spanning centuries, their methods utterly ruthless. Patient as stone, but always working towards that end goal.
It's a complex, evolving strategy, constantly adapting to the threats they face, fueled by a deep-seated arrogance, resentment over their fall, ruthless pragmatism, and the vast collective knowledge of their elder brains. And if the theories of temporal displacement are true, adding an existential desperation to avert their own prophesied doom by reshaping the very fabric of multiversal destiny, patient, intelligent, relentless, and utterly terrifying in their scope. Recent events in places like Phandalin even suggest they're developing new variants and focusing on rapid, controlled ceremorphosis as a means to swiftly build armies, a direct investment in the military aspect of the grand design. They're not just waiting anymore.
Gearing up for something big, maybe, or just getting more efficient at being awful.
Mind Flayers. Ancient, alien intelligent, psionic, parasitic supremacist. A fallen empire, driven by the grand design to reclaim their lost dominion over all sentient life. Their impact on Faerun, its Underdark, its people. Profound, insidious, and often devastating.
They're a problem that doesn't go away. Doesn't get solved easily anyway. Just hides deeper, waits longer, finds a new way to be awful, waiting for the right moment to strike again from the shadows. A persistent infection in the world.
And despite our research, our piecing together of accounts, several persistent mysteries still cloud our understanding of the Illithidae. The definitive singular truth of their ultimate origins remains frustratingly elusive, perhaps deliberately so. The full extent of their lost empire, the secrets of its technology, is largely unknown, scattered, or hidden across the plains. The precise nature and ultimate limits of elder brain consciousness and the true dynamics of the hive mind beyond our current understanding require further elucidation. The possibility of further undiscovered variants or novel ceremorphological outcomes, as hinted at by recent events, remains a constant, terrifying concern. And phenomena such as the Netherese tadpoles and suspended ceremorphosis demand urgent, widespread investigation to understand their mechanisms and strategic implications before they are used against us on a massive scale.
So much we still don't understand about them, still hidden in the dark places they came from or fled to. Avenues for future inquiry, for anyone brave or foolish enough to look further. Monitoring known colonies with more sophisticated means, maybe scrying or psionic probes, trying to analyze Qualith or understand their telepathic network more deeply, studying any captured tech like nautiloid wreckage carefully, looking into the long-term effects on survivors of their influence or attempted transformation, and maybe, just maybe, exploiting those internal schisms we discussed between Orthodox colonies, renegades, and Alhoons. Finding a crack in their unity, turning their own methods against them.
In final summation, the Illithidae remain one of the most potent, enigmatic, and fundamentally dangerous sentient species encountered within Faerun, or indeed across the known planes. Their profound alienness, coupled with their demonstrated adaptability, their insidious patience spanning millennia, and the sheer audacious scope of their ambitions means they will likely always pose a significant threat to free will and sentient existence. Continuous vigilance, dedicated inquiry, and a preparedness to confront novel manifestations of their power are absolutely essential for the sentient races of Faerun and the multiverse to comprehend, counteract, and ultimately survive the looming shadow of the Illithid grand design. It is an ongoing imperative for the safeguarding of freedom itself.
Think about it. If that Neothelid theory is true, if the humanoid Mind Flayer form is just an engineered deviation from their natural gargantuan worm-like state, maybe we aren't what they wanted to become. Maybe we are just the tools they use, the living materials, to avoid being something else entirely. What does that make us in the grand scheme of their twisted evolution?
That was our look into the terrifying world of the Illithidae here on Realm Talk.
Hope it gives you something to chew on. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Try not to dwell on it too much before you sleep tonight. Keep your windows locked.
Join us next time on Realm Talk as we delve into another mystery or wonder of the realms. And if you found this discussion enlightening, be sure to subscribe for more. Let us know in the comments below what topic you'd like us to cover next on Realm Talk.
Stay safe out there in the dark. The deep places hold many secrets and many teeth. And some of them crave your thoughts more than anything else.
For Realm Talk, I'm Ember Rivenvale.
And I'm Ronan Greymark.
Until next time.